All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at what is, without a doubt, the most epic survival story in human history, outsmarting the Ice Age. Right now, you're probably sitting somewhere warm, maybe got a coffee, totally comfortable. But today, we're going to explore how a soft, hairless animal that originally evolved in the baking African heat somehow managed to survive a brutal, frozen, completely unforgiving world. It is literally the ultimate underdog story.
Seriously? Imagine yourself right now. Strip away all your modern comforts. No winter coat, no central heating, no grocery store down the street. Just you, bare-skinned, dropped right into a winter from 26,000 years ago. We are not talking about a chilly afternoon where you might need a light sweater. No, this is the peak of the last ice age. Massive sheets of ice covered entire continents. The land was flat, frozen solid, and just completely battered by blistering winds. If you're exposed to that kind of cold, your body doesn't just shiver, it completely shuts down in mere hours.
And when you look at our biological stats compared to the giant beasts we shared the world with, mammoths, cave bears, it's kind of pathetic. Those animals were literally built for the frost, rocking thick fur, massive fat layers, and hibernation skills. On paper, humans should have been the absolute first things to die. No fur, no fat, we can't even slow our heart rates down. We were in the completely wrong body, in the wrong place, at the absolute worst possible time. But we didn't die out, we survived. Why? Because we used our brains and our hands to invent what our bodies were missing.
So, to really understand how we pulled this off, think of the massive challenges our ancestors faced like boss levels in a completely unfair video game. Boss battle number 1, deadly cold and shelter. The immediate killer. You couldn't survive a single night without solving this. And the first, absolutely crucial weapon we had to fight back the freeze was, of course, fire. But we didn't just, casually throw a few twigs together.
We're not talking about a cozy little campfire here. Archaeologists have actually found Ice Age fire pits in Ukraine that were carefully engineered to burn at over 600 degrees Celsius. Think about that. Out on the open, frozen tundra, wood is incredibly scarce. It's almost non-existent. So our ancestors had to innovate. When the wood ran out, they burned animal fat and bone to reach those blistering temperatures. It gave them intense heat, a way to cook food, and, crucially, a few precious hours of light in a dark, icy world.
But heat isn't enough if you can't keep it close to your body, right? Enter a tiny invention that literally changed everything: the sewing needle. Throwing a raw, leaky, bare skin over your shoulders, that is just not going to cut it when temps drop below zero. But with a tiny, drilled piece of bone, invented roughly 30,000 years ago, you could actually sew a windproof coat. You could make closed sleeves and airtight seams. You were essentially capturing the warmth of the animals you hunted and wearing it as your own personal armor.
And then there's shelter. Out on those open plains, with absolutely no wood or deep caves to hide in, humans did something incredible. They engineered massive homes out of the very beasts they hunted. We're talking mammoth bone houses. They would sink giant mammoth skulls and leg bones deep into the earth for a solid foundation, and then curve massive ribs and tusks upward to form a roof. Then they packed the whole thing tightly with hides, moss, and earth for insulation. They even used brilliant physics. They dug cold trap doorways, basically making the entryway lower than the sleeping area so the heavy freezing air would sink down and away from the family sleeping above. I mean, that is absolutely genius.
Okay, so boss battle 2, the hunger. You've survived the night, you've got a roaring fire, a mammoth bone house, a fitted coat. Awesome. But staying warm only keeps you alive for the moment. The slower, much more insidious killer is starvation, because under all that ice, the food supply completely vanishes for months on end.
So how do you beat that? Well, they survived by pulling a total judo move on the environment. They turned the freezing cold into a massive natural refrigerator. See, when they hunted, they didn't just eat for the day and call it good. They anticipated the long, brutal winter. They used incredibly clever, zero-power preservation techniques. They'd execute these massive, coordinated hunts, smoke and dry the meat into jerky, and store it in dugout cellars. They'd even sink heavy mammoth meat down into freezing cold ponds to preserve it. They were squeezing every single calorie out of a totally harsh world.
Now let's move on to boss battle 3, because things get even crazier. While they were busy not freezing and not starving, they also faced an even more terrifying threat: apex predators. The Ice Age wasn't just cold, you guys. It was populated by absolute monsters.
Against these absolute biological tanks, a simple, two-legged human with no claws and flat, boring teeth seems hilariously outmatched. You add the short-faced bear, standing 12 feet tall and running 40 miles per hour, saber-toothed cats with 11-inch fangs, cave hyenas with a bone-crushing bite force of 1,100 pounds, hunting in relentless packs. For millions of years, we were not the hunters, we were the hunted. Every single biological metric said we were just prey.
But remember that 600-degree fire? It gave us something magical, a 30-foot safety zone. Predators are hardwired to stay away from fire. Inside that glowing circle, humans effectively add an invisible, totally impenetrable shield. Even today, lions will instinctively avoid a campfire. That 30-foot circle bought our ancestors the critical time they desperately needed. Time to sleep without fear, to think, to talk, and to invent.
And then we took the fight to them. We actually utilized our own weird biology to go on the offensive. You see, humans have a really rare ability. We can sweat. It allows us to regulate our body temperature while we're moving. Most animals just can't do this. They overheat. So we developed a terrifying strategy known as persistence hunting. We literally just jogged these massive beasts until they collapsed from heat stroke. We definitely couldn't outsprint a saber-toothed cat. They are incredibly fast. But we could absolutely outlast them. A top-tier predator sprints for seconds, maybe a few minutes tops. But an ancient human, we could track and maintain a steady jog for 6 hours or more. We turned our incredible endurance into a lethal weapon. We didn't need to overpower them in a sudden sprint. We just had to exhaust them until they simply couldn't run anymore.
Now, as clever as the fire, the sewing needles, the bone houses, and the endurance hunting were, tools and physical stamina weren't our ultimate secret weapon. The real trick, the absolute core reason we made it through the ice and the fangs, was community. It was our ability to connect, to strategize together, and to deeply rely on one another.
In an ice age, the modern concept of personal space meant certain death. Seriously. Survival meant packing dozens of people tightly into one of those mammoth bone shelters. Your heater wasn't a machine. It was your family, your tribe. You literally survived off each other's shared body heat. If you were living alone during a sudden cold snap, you were exposed and you were doomed.
There's a quote that perfectly captures this, and I absolutely love it. A lion with no teeth dies. A human with no teeth gets taken care of. In the wild animal kingdom, if an apex predator loses its physical advantage, nature eliminates it almost instantly. But humans, we fundamentally broke the rules of nature.
And we actually have the physical proof of this compassion. Archaeologists found the human ancestor skull in Dramamine, Georgia, dating back 1.8 million years. The skull was completely toothless, but here's the crazy part. The bones showed they lived for years after losing those teeth. How is that even possible? Because their group must have chewed and softened their food for them. We survived the deadliest predators and the most brutal cold because we strategized, we shared, and we fundamentally cared for the weak.
And just look at the results of that extreme adaptability and incredible teamwork. Everywhere human populations spread across the globe, the giant predators that used to hunt us, they vanished from the timeline entirely. Cave lions? Gone. Giant short-faced bears? Gone. Saber-toothed cats? Gone. We didn't just survive our environment, we completely mastered it, outsmarting literally every biological threat in our path.
It's honestly wild to think about. The descendants of these ultimate battle-hardened survivors, us, are now sitting comfortably inside. In just a tiny blink of evolutionary time, we went from stacking mammoth bones to tapping a thermostat on a glowing screen. We beat the cold so entirely that we've kind of forgotten what a ruthless killer it once was. So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you shudder complaining about the brief, chilly walk to your heated car, just remember the unbelievable, millions of years long war your ancestors fought and won